So typically when I make videos like this and I write a title, I'm trying to make a bigger point. I'm trying to educate on a broader topic. Like my video before with, did LeBron James's shoes cause his bunions? Trying to dispel a myth out there. In this case, I mean this title literally, because I just think on the broader point, there are things right now that people are prioritizing in basketball shoes that may have some benefits, but also have some risks to them. And I think where we're going and what technologies we're putting into shoes, and like I said, what we're prioritizing in basketball shoes may have some interesting use cases and have some interesting benefits, but they also have risks. And so I think that we do need to talk about those types of risks. And I think really nothing illustrates that better than what just happened to Tyrese Haliburton. Because although, yes, he just suffered another gruesome Achilles injury, this whole injury process and all of this started a few nights ago and a few games ago with his previous calf strain. There's a bigger topic here that I think you all need to know about, because you could be putting yourself at the same risk, or at least you should understand them before you go blindly looking at what the newest rage is or the newest hype is in shoes. Let's get into this. Now, prior to Tyrese Haliburton getting his calf strain, he had been having some calf soreness, and so he had been, working up to this injury. And one of the biggest causes of muscle failure, Achilles failure, anything, tendon failure, fascia, whatever, is repetitive micro trauma, which is from overuse, which is, from improper load management. And so, when you play a lot, like Tyrese Haliburton has, you're putting your body through a ton, and he plays pretty hard and plays a lot of minutes. The thing is that a calf strain, calf strains are actually very, very common. Now your calf muscles, they're actually two muscles. One is the gastrocnemius, one is the soleus. The gastrocnemius is the one that's more typically strained, right? Those two muscles come together, they make the Achilles tendon. The gastrocnemius, though, we call it the gastroc, actually crosses the knee joint and the ankle joint, and there are two heads to it. So when it attaches on both sides of the knee, on the distal end of the femur or the south end of the femur. And so when a lot of times when the ankle is loading, right, when it is straining the calf, the Achilles, and then the knee is also extending, you're putting a lot of strain on those two heads of that muscle. And you do it enough times, do it violently enough, it can pull. Because that is one of the muscles, like I said, muscle and tendon, right, it becomes the Achilles, that crosses two joints. And they're two big joints that do big work, the knee and the ankle. And so the mechanics of a calf strain or a calf pull, it's pretty darn simple, but it's what are the risk factors besides too much playing time, not enough load management, not enough recovery. In terms of shoes, interestingly enough, it all comes down to grip. There are some stability elements in the shoe, but it's the grip of the shoe that can actually really increase the load on the calf muscles. Specifically, it's the rotational grip of a shoe. If it is too high or just very high, because there's no give there, your body continues to rotate. We're talking micro movements here, right? And a lot of times macro movements, right? If your uppers aren't containing enough, we'll talk about that. But if the shoe is grabbing into the ground too much, what's happening is the body is still moving within the shoe, because the shoe is now more stable than the body. And so as the body moves through the shoe, the calf and your peroneals, the muscles on the outside of your ankle and leg, those try to contain you and they engage really hard. Now the peroneals, they only cross, like I said, the ankle. They cross foot joints, but the major joint across the ankle does not cross the knee. That calf muscle does. And so as it's trying to contain the foot, as the body is pivoting and rotating and the shoe is staying still, you're getting a tremendous amount of strain there. And so let's say Tyrese Haliburton goes into his new shoes and they're a lot tackier than his old ones, right? They're a lot tackier than the All Pro Nitro. And now all of a sudden, his calf's having to do more work than it used to over time, and he's playing a lot of minutes. Now you're gonna start to get a lot of fatigue. Now when he goes to push off like he did when we saw the injury happen, it was really just a matter of time. It was just a straw that broke the camel's back. Now the other interesting thing to this is, yes, high rotational grip does induce a lot more strain on the calf, but the opposite is also true in acute circumstances. So high rotational grip, worse for it in the long run. Like it's more chronic repetitive injury. If there's a lack of grip or an acute lack of grip, that can cause those acute calf strains, or ones that happen even if you hadn't had any micro trauma or your muscle was perfectly well rested, right? You know, you just came off the bench, right? And you've been sitting on the bench for, I don't know, 3 weeks, whatever. When you suddenly lose grip, right, your calf muscle and your perineals are trying to rapidly decelerate or accelerate, right, to try to find grip on the ground. And so a lot of times then, once you find that traction or you keep slipping, as that muscle tries to really contract and control you, that's when it can also lead to a failure, especially if you come down really hard and knee extends, ankle extends, you know, stuff like that. So it could be the point where maybe he was torquing his leg, and then all of a sudden there's some sweat on the ground, boop, goes out, and then that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So it can be both. High rotational grip or no grip at all can actually cause the same thing. And so let's say your lower leg is now weakened from all that repetitive trauma and it just does not want to contain you. You go back for that hezzy step or that negative step, and then all of a sudden, when things are not wanting to fire properly, that's also when you can get an Achilles rupture. Now, the next thing that causes calf strains is lack of stability in the shoe. Mainly lack of stability in the heel counter. If your heel is wobbling around all the time, that means that muscle is actively firing back there to try to hold your heel straight into the ground. That's why I always talk about Nike and their double heel counters and those thick heel counters. Those are fantastic because they hold you stiff in the rear foot of the shoe. It holds that heel in the rear foot of the shoe, allowing your midfoot to then move around and kind of get all that tactile sensation and get all those degrees of freedom and do all those crazy things that so many elite basketball players can do. Was it his shoes? Could have just been a freak accident, for sure. It could have been sweat on the ground, pull, boom. It could have been improper load management, too many minutes, relying on him too much, just you're trying to do too much over too long a period of time. It might just be that the shoe has a different grip profile than his old one. Doesn't mean the shoe is bad by any means whatsoever. I mean, it really does not mean this shoe is bad at all. It's not what I'm saying. It's just, was it different enough from his old ones that he switched to them in the middle of one of the most stressful times a basketball player can go through, and one of the most physically demanding times a basketball player can go through. So he switches to this new shoe, and maybe it's got a little bit higher rotational grip. Hey, that's great. He's thinking like, hey, I'm getting all this grip and traction. Then all of a sudden, it can actually, you know, in the short term, it's great, but then in the long term, maybe he needed to just build himself up into that shoe. But like I said, it is interesting, just a larger thing. And people are so obsessed with grip and traction and how sticky a shoe is, and you know, and how, you know, razor sharp traction is in a shoe right now. And I just think that we need to kind of take a step back from that and think like there's a reason why a lot of shoes have a little bit of give. If you watch my Fresh Foam BBV2 just diatribe for about a year, all I did was talk about that shoe, how great it was, how many of my patients I put in that shoe. What was the one thing I said in that video? It's got a little bit of give. Feels like it feels like it's kind of digging into the court, but it has a little bit of give. It has a few millimeters of give to it, and I like that because you can disperse energy better through it. And you know, you just go back, watch the tape of that video back then. And so I think a shoe doesn't necessarily have to have that crazy high traction. That's another reason why, you know, a lot of times you see Steph Curry in flow foam shoes. Steph is always getting new, super tacky flow shoes. You've ever seen a flow shoe when it comes out of the box, it is as tacky gets, especially on pristine NBA courts, what he's playing on. And so, yeah, for the majority of the time, he needs it because he is making such hard cuts and he is stopping on a dime. And, you know, he needs to be able to push off at just these crazy angles and get quite a bit of force, right? To get some of the threes that he hits from way back where, right? You know, from the parking lot. And so the majority of the time, it's fantastic. With him, with his chronic ankle instability, if he gets too much traction here or there, it can lead to an ankle sprain too. So that's why I hear some people say like, I don't like flow because it's too sticky. It's too grabby. And so there's other people that say, no, I can control, I like it, I've gotten used to it. So I hope this helped. I hope you learned something about this, and I hope just gave you something to think about. So if you do like that crazy traction, that really pinpoint traction, fine. Just make sure that you get used to that and that you work on those calves and perineals too to make sure that they are strong enough to handle that kind of rotational stability in the shoe, right? So if the shoe is stopping on a dime, so are you. So Like I said, if you're interested in a bunch of other myths about shoes, I got a whole video right here, a whole playlist actually right here, a bunch of myths about low tops you might want to check out before you go start saying that they are the cause of everything evil in this world. Make sure you check out this video right here and make sure you subscribe down below. I'll see you in that video.